Hi, it's Barry Neale here. Have you ever worked with a client, and this might be for weight loss or smoking or stopping drinking or overcoming anxiety or something like this, even IBS, and they're successful for a while and then something happens and it triggers them to go back to the old behavior. Now, if you ask some hypnotherapists, they'll say, oh, there must be some sort of secondary gain and all sorts of stuff like this, and they come up with a load of psychobabble. But the reality it's just that there's something has happened that's triggered them to backslide. That something has happened and it's triggered them to backslide. And you know what? In the early stages of making changes, this is not surprising. We've all heard the phrase of Hebbs Law that neurons that fire together wire together. Now, do you really think that if you wave your magic wand, that suddenly those neurons have suddenly disappeared and they're no longer wired together? No, of course, they're still wired together. We may have put in a roadblock and had them go into another way, but for a period of time, for some few months, those neurons are still there. And so if something comes along and triggers them, they can go back to their old way of behaving. So knowing this, then we should build that in to our change work process. Knowing that there could be situations where the client could get re-triggered and end up backsliding and falling off the wagon in some way, shape or form, and then going, oh, hypnosis doesn't work or NLP doesn't work, and then they give up. Shouldn't we do something about it? What if we know that's a possibility, why don't we, as part of our change work process, inoculate against that happening? Well, this is what this technique's going to do. And I originally got this from Richard Bandler many, many years ago. And it's about installing a recovery strategy, because it takes into account that sometimes people will go back to their old way of behaving. Something will happen and they'll get triggered in some way, shape or form, and they'll go back to their old way of behaving and they give up and they think, I'm always going to be like this. And it's a bit like, imagine if you had a tray of glasses, and I often explain this to certainly my weight loss clients. If you imagine you had a tray of lead crystal glasses and you're walking along, you've got this tray of lead crystal glasses and you kind of trip a little bit and one of those glasses falls off and smashes on the floor. Now, do you at that point go, oh, well, that's not going to work. I might as well give up and throw the rest of the glasses down and smash all those? No, of course not. You just realize you made a mistake and you get yourself back and you start doing it. So what we need to do is to install a recovery strategy, recognizing that many clients will have bad days and may go back to that old way of behaving. So here's how we're going to do that. We're going to install what is called a recovery strategy. So I'm assuming that you've done all the other work that you're going to do, all the change work patterns that you're going to do, and this is the sort of thing that you finish off with. Now, I'm assuming that when you're asking your clients lots of questions, that you're finding out what's their motivation for making this change. So, for example, it could be sticking to a diet, it could be changing their exercise routine, it could be overcoming anxiety, why they're wanting to stop smoking. And what I want you to do is to really, at this point, get into that and really get that motivation going, because we want to tap in to their reasons why they want to make them change. So we want to have them think about what they really want to be motivated to do, what they really want to be disciplined to do. So whether that's sticking to their diet or sticking to a new exercise regime or overcoming their anxiety, we want to get them to think about making that change and being disciplined to do that. Have them think about how much they really want to be free of that behavior, or how they really want to be healthy, how they want to be slim, and developing their ideal body or whatever it is, and have them imagine that in detail. in real detail. So have them imagine what it would be like to be completely free of the anxiety and have their life back and be able to go all the places that they want to go, until they start to feel that feeling of being really motivated and determined. This is what I really want. I really, really want this. And have them think about this. Have them begin to feel the feeling of being motivated to take action. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have them focus on where that feeling starts and which way that feeling is spinning. Now, if you've watched some of the other videos I've done, I talk about using what's called a reverse spin, to take a negative feeling and spin it in the opposite direction, and the negative feeling goes away. Well, here's the thing. If you take a feeling and find out which way it's spinning and spin it faster in the same direction, it increases the intensity of that feeling. So in this case, we want to get a feeling of being motivated, of being determined to get their life back, or to reach and maintain their ideal weight. And we want to get that feeling up, and then we want to spin it faster in that same direction. So we get it spinning faster and faster and faster. And we want to be paying attention to the client and seeing that they are going into this state. So we get them to spin it faster and faster. Then we have them imagine going out into the future. So like they're going on their diet, or they've started their exercise, or they've got a couple of weeks being completely free of anxiety, whatever, and they have them spin this feeling. Then what we're going to do is have them imagine backsliding, have them imagine falling off the diet, have them imagine having a bad day and not exercising, have them imagine like something triggering them and making them feel anxious. And then what we're going to do is then have them imagine getting back up and starting again, and spin that feeling faster and faster as they imagine themselves getting back on it. So we're getting them to future pace, having a mishap, but instead of going, oh, poor me, I know I'm going to have to spend my life like this, we have them spin the feeling of motivation faster and faster, and then have them imagine getting back up and getting back on that diet, or throwing away those cigarettes, or throwing away the alcohol, or practicing their breathing exercises if it's something like anxiety or something. So they become determined. No, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it anyway. So we spin this feeling again, faster and faster. Now, we don't just do that once. We then go further out into the future. So for example, we might start, say here's today, and then we go out, say a week from now. And imagine them having a bad day. We have them imagine falling off it, spinning that feeling faster, and then get back on, and they get back on track. And again, now they go away for, say, a month, and they're doing really, really well for a month. But then they have another bad day, and they fall back off. We then have them imagine spinning that feeling of motivation and determination faster and faster, and then they get back on it again, and they continue to do the new behavior. And then this might go on for 3 months. So we're now 3 months out, and they've been fine for a while, but then they have another bad day. Something happens, something triggers them. We get them to spin the feeling of motivation, determination faster, and get back up and do it again and repeat. And what happens is the further they go out in the future, 6 months, a year, what happens is the fewer and fewer times that they backslide until they no longer do. So what we're doing is we're future pacing the reality of life, that, there's going to be some curveballs out there. For people who, if you're working with someone who's got anxiety, for example, to expect that they're never going to have anxiety for the rest of their life is just not realistic. It really isn't. There are going to be things out there that throw a curveball at them. And if they have one of those days and then, oh my God, all my anxieties come back, then they're going to go back to how they were. But if they go, oh, it's just a one-time thing, let's spin this feeling faster and get back on track, then they'll recover. So what we're doing, we're building in a recovery strategy. I highly recommend that you do this, particularly if you're working with weight loss, with smoking, with alcohol type issues, and also anxiety and things, because again, there will be situations where something will trigger them. But this is a really, really useful strategy. So the key is Step one, finding out why they want to make this change. What's so important for them to make this change? And then start, as they feel that feeling of motivation and determination that they must make this change, spin this feeling faster and faster. So it really becomes strong. Then you take them out into the future to a time when they screw up a little bit, something happens, something goes wrong, and they spin that feeling faster and imagine themselves getting back up and continuing on. Does that make sense? So it's a really useful technique. It future paces the reality of life, that you know what, sometimes things go wrong, but it gives them a recovery strategy so that if it does, they have a strategy to get back on and get their life turned around. So have some fun with this. I highly recommend that you use it with behavioral change and habit change, because it's really important to be realistic. If we say to our clients, you know what, you'll never ever be hungry again, or you'll always feel like exercising, or you'll never have anxiety again, that's just not realistic. And the moment they do, a little doubt is going to creep in and go, oh my God, it's not working. And off they go. Tray of glasses, smash. We want to really future pace that with reality. So have some fun with this. If there's any questions, make sure you ask them in the comments below, and please sign up if you haven't already subscribed.